Nope, now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. This is our monthly webinar series. And as you see in the back, we're North Carolina Families United. So thank you for being here. We have a very, very special guest today. But before I get into introducing who she is, I just want to go over a few housekeeping rules. If you all could please make sure that you mute your computers. We do want this to be interactive, but there's going to be a specific section and time for that. So if you will please make sure that you mute so we can hear what the beautiful, and I do mean beautiful, lady of the hour is here to tell us today. She is going to be talking about breaking generational cycles through tough love and gentle parenting and the effects and the impacts that it has on relationships. So, if I can, I would like to introduce Miss Malika Wiley. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she has over 14 years of experience working with individuals, couples, and families. Malika is currently the owner of Uvolve Healing Center, a virtual therapy practice that serves clients in states of Texas and Virginia. And we're trying to get her in North Carolina. We're trying really, really hard to do that. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and give the floor to her. Malika Wiley.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Let me share my screen and then I will talk more. It says I'm presenting. Yes. Okay. So before I dive in, one, I'm going to keep my eye on the time because there is a lot to cover. But if you are sitting down, this is where I want to invite you to grab your pen, grab your paper, because there is a lot of information here, and I want you to be able to jot them down. And then at the end, um, they will. Yes, I love you come on screen too. I love seeing who's on. So hi, but write them down so that at the end I can answer your questions. I am not pretending to be the expert of all because I am not, but I am really good about creating space for us to have real conversations about what we as individuals can do to help in the theme of what we're talking about, which is breaking generational cycles. I am not the expert of tough love or gentle parenting. You will see, I'll share a mix between the two. But it impacts your relationship. And the most importantly, it's the relationship that you have with yourself and others. And so, another note that I like to say, if any of you have ever been in a presentation with me, is I like to say, listen to your body. What that means is when we're discussing information, you are the expert of you. If you find that I say something and you're like, let me drink my water, like, I don't know what she's talking about, that would be like something to write down of like, why am I feeling a little avoided? Or if you're like, oh, shoot, she said that. Dang. Okay. Let me think about that. Write that down too. So yeah, we'll get going. So again, I am Malika. Let me change my screen. And I am a therapist. I have been a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist for 14 years now, which is crazy to say. But I started my journey as a therapist. My career in the Lansing Maximum Security Prison System, working with their Brother in Blues program, transitioned to a nonprofit, and then went and spent the bulk of my career at the Department of Veteran Affairs. So I got to work with our nation's veterans, which makes sense too, because both of my parents are military background. They were officers in the military. And so that family military background is just something that is near and dear to my heart. It also, as you can see with as I go through the presentation, as well as my personality, I was one who, those who knew me back in the day would be like, wait, you're a therapist? I was very angry anger was the emotion to go to. What is depression and fear? That doesn't exist. Like what? And so, really growing up, um, I have evolved over the years. I had my first child at 16 and then got married, had my daughter at 27. And so I can even see from myself, you all on the this presentation as well of like, man, a 16-year-old raising a child, I was a child, and then a 27-year-old raising a child, two different parenting styles, right? And so this presentation is a blend of like my life experiences, still some research about what's going on from my academic knowledge, and just my own clinical experience. Um, so, as always, I like to start with objectives so we know what we're doing. It keeps me on track too. The very first one is we're going to understand how tough love and gentle parenting impact children and relationships. Again, this is not heavily focused on you need to be a gentle parenting or you need to not do tough love. I just want us to create a space to talk about them. And then we can recognize the roles of reparenting ourselves and what it actually means to break this generational cycle. Learn practical real life tools for moving forward. So, my hope is by the end of this hour, you will have a concrete plan for yourself, or at least some bullet points for yourself of like, I want to just work on this one thing for this amount of time. And my hope is that you leave feeling validated, hopeful, and empowered to make. And I am the queen of small changes, but like small changes, right? So, with that, I want to talk about so what is tough love? Or if we think about parenting in itself, parenting isn't just about raising our kids. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's also in a way it shapes how we have interact, like our own parenting, our own upbringing, cultural influences play a role. Um, Strategies for survival have played a role. And so when we look at tough love, let me move my cursor. When we look at tough love, that came, if we think about it, back in the day, it came from a very disciplined, structured, resilient type of parenting. So if we think back in the day, and let me slow myself down because I get excited. Many Black or Latino, Indigenous people, or even immigrant families, we were raised, or our grandparents. Ooh, can y'all still see it or no? Did it go away? Oh, my slide went away from me. Hold on, pause. I'm going to stop sharing really quick. I had this on. Okay, here we go. I think what I'm going to have to do is not have it full screen because then when I click out, okay, and then let me share again. It's nothing like a good technical difficulty to like slow you down, right? Like we're
That's
just
our
flowing with it.
favorite. It wouldn't be a good webinar if we
Yes.
didn't have that.
Yes. Okay, let me share again. Presentation. Is it presenting
Yeah, that's good.
the
Yes,
right screen?
it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just leave my cursor here and not touch my mouse. And then we're gonna go from there. So where was I saying tough love? Oh, for safety and um, let me get my bearings again. Safety and the things like that in the sense of this tough love of there are certain things that you cannot do in this world like other individuals can. I have an example. So it could be in the sense of, let's just say, a Black mother telling her son to keep his hands visible when he's pulled over by police. Not because she doesn't trust him, but it's because she knows the world may treat him differently. I don't know about you all, but when I was growing up as well, and you guys can like write in the chat, maybe if there is a chat, but when I of your own experiences, if you want to share. But I remember growing up, and it's like if you walk in a store, keep your hands out. You don't have the luxury, Malika, to just be shopping around, holding clothes, having your big purse, doing this. Like you need to like know what that is. And my mom or dad did not say that in the most loving way of like, Malika, my darling, this is why this is happening. It's like, listen, we about to go in the store, don't act up. Okay. So love my mom to death. Or like, let's just say a immigrant father who pushes his children to work twice as hard in school, not because he doesn't believe in them, but because he knows that they'll have to work harder, possibly than their peers, to get the same opportunities. So it's this type of conditioning, if we think about it. Again, this is just my perspective from, I feel like this tough love came from this big sense of safety and a place of love. But the way that it just transpired over the years or over the decades is this toughness. We want to make our kids tough so that the world won't break them. But now we're seeing with us millennials, I'll take that, that it came at a cost, right? And so sometimes tough love creates emotional distance. I've heard a lot from my peers or even the older generation that were like, yeah, we just didn't talk to our parents like this. Or if I'm like, yeah, my mom is like one of my best friends. Sometimes people are like, what? Like my mom, she's cool, but I could not talk to her. Like she just didn't understand. Or my dad, what? Dinner daughter dates with my dad, that like that wouldn't be us. My dad showed us he loved us by him being there, but not by him physically saying something. And so if we think about tough love, I'll end that by saying it focuses on survival. Kids may struggle with emotional expression or self-worth or being vulnerable. Um, and so let's go to gentle parenting. Gentle parenting, as we see, this is a movement. I don't want to say a movement, but it is a movement that came up. A lot of research has been done with some child psychologists on gentle parenting. And where that is, it prioritizes the emotional intelligence, so the emotional connection. And so instead of a parent saying, stop crying, there's nothing to cry about, or I'll give you something to cry about, right? It's this parent having this emotional, when I say emotional intelligence, um, think of it like IQ. Like IQ is how intelligent we are. EI, which is the emotional intelligence, is just how are we, and I'll do like this. Like if I do a scan of myself, how am I aware of how my emotions show up? And that how am I aware of how the impact that I have, knowing that my emotions, where I'm at, how I am impacts the other, whether that's your husband, wife, partner, friend, child, etc. And so having this emotional intelligence about us allows us to create space to validate our kids' feelings. We're more likely to use calmer communication. I feel like and these people, those that use gentle parenting, have like this aura about them, like this softness, like a calmness. They're not as easily rattled. Um, their equilibrium is like imbalanced, in sync, right? Um, with this, and we know research also shows this requires a lot of patience. Emotional intelligence is one that we develop over time, and not all of us are starting at the same space, right? And so, if we have someone who had generation on generation on generation of, let's just say, tough love, abuse, etc., trauma, and then now you're here. So let's just say there's 5 generations of this, and you're here. You are trying to equally, which we'll go to, unlearn some of these as well as do something different. And so giving yourself grace for those that are like, I'm not doing gentle parenting right. It's like it takes time. Um, I like healthy parenting. That's where you can find a balance because I am a clinician that lives in, I like reality. And so as much as I would love to work towards being more of a gentle parent, I also have a Black son who is in this world, a biracial daughter. And I am like, there are some things that I need to be a little more tough. Now I can be aware of how I speak, right? But there's more things that I need to make sure that I'm teaching you. Um, However, if my child asks questions like, why do I have to do X, Y, and Z? Maybe I won't say, because I said so. Maybe, which would be more of a tough love. Maybe I'll say something of like explaining, we're going to do X and Y because of this, right? Maybe I won't view if they're asking me questions as automatic disrespect. And I'll know because I'm developing this emotional intelligence, which I will share with me, I am developing that. Then my child has this space to ask questions. So let me give some examples of healthy parenting. So instead of harsh punishment and ignoring it, maybe the parent can say something like, I get that you're upset, but in this family, we speak to others with respect. And so maybe I'll use my name as an example. Malika, do you want to tell your sister that again in a different language? Again, that would take my parent having that EI, that emotional intelligence. Instead of hitting and screaming when my child doesn't listen, or like hitting my hand down and be like, you can just go to your room. I'm tired of saying this. Maybe I pause before I'm reacting, or I get down on their level calmly and explain something to them. In preparation for this, I was talking to my kiddos actually, and my son, remember I had him at 16, my daughter 27. It's so funny, not funny, but it's our dynamics of my son would be like, yeah, no, I remember you came into our room, you snatched my Xbox out of that wall, and you took my door down and said, listen here, MFer. I don't even remember what I said. And I was like, oh my God, I am so sorry that happened to you. And I kind of remember that. Or my daughter was like, what, mom? Like, I will get down on the floor with her, all talk, or different things like that, right? So completely different parent. Made some repairs with my older as well. And now if he's watching this, I'm his best friend. But that could be one too, where if we think about tough love, and then I'll move forward. Tough love is like, I'm not your little friend, right? Our parents were not our friends. They were there to raise us, feed us, beat us, clean us, keep us safe, right? Whereas healthy parenting is, oh, okay, you're a human. I can have this type of relationship with you. Okay, like I get to explore this big world, and I have like my safety person, people, family with me. So, okay, let me move forward. So, why breaking generational cycles is hard? I kind of went through this when I did my scenario where I said like the 5 generations. But if we bring our attention to the picture, I like how you have an older gentleman, and let's just say he grew up telling the one that is right here, you were stupid. I can't believe it. I told you not to do this thing. You're just like your grandpa. You're just like da da da. You're never going to amount to anything, right? Then let's just say this individual right here. Ooh, I'm nervous to move my mouse. This individual right here grew up hearing this and felt like they weren't good enough. I can't do anything right. I have to be perfect so they love me. So then they said to their individual, you're not good enough. Why aren't you doing this? You're just like your grandpa. No one in this family is going to amount to anything. Whatever the case may be, I'm sure we've heard them, right? So fill in the blank of yours if you're taking notes. This individual right here, they're saying to this child, I love you. I care about you. You can do that. That's a great painting. You're so creative. You want to go to school to be an artist? Yeah, you could do that, right? Like those type of things. This line, if we bring it here, is this person is actively breaking a generational cycle by speaking I love you, by maybe what we don't see. If let's just say I could click in and zoom in on this person right here, maybe what they're doing is they are in therapy, and they have realized that what their parents said and doesn't define who they are, although it impacted them. They can have both love and respect for their parent while also knowing, man, they did the best that they could while also kind of effing me up. Also, I did not ask. I'll just not cuss. I'll just not cuss because sometimes I'll be cussing with my clients, you know. But since we're on the YouTube. Oh no, I don't want the video to get taken down. Intrusive thought, insert it. Okay, but so maybe they'll say that. Maybe they did therapy. Maybe they did presentations like this. Maybe they read a book about reparenting yourself. Maybe they started walking to get their anger out and exercising. Whatever the case may be, this is them knowing that parenting is also reparenting ourselves. I honestly believe parenting is one of the hardest jobs that we will have. And even if you're not a parent in the sense of you have the child, but you are taking care of another individual, that is being a parent. Having someone else responsible for someone else is a lot, to say the least, right? When I say triggers right here, triggers don't mean failure. They are there for learning. Something I remind myself, I teach my clients is whenever you are triggered, I am like, yes, what do we learn? What can we learn? Right? Like, oh, you got triggered? Let's learn something. Because we're going to be triggered. Even if you have an animal, right? You're going to be triggered by them, like, gosh darn it, I just did, right? So, whatever the case may be, if we look at our triggers, and all of us will have individual triggers because they're unique to us and our situation, what does knowing that you can learn from that is key, right? You are not broken because you're triggered. I don't care how much therapy, healing retreats, yoga sessions, massages, etc. that you get. As long as you are breathing and you are living and you have a functioning nervous system, which all of us do since we're on this call, we have the opportunity to be triggered, right? And so knowing that is it's okay to struggle doing this. This person isn't perfect. They didn't just do this overnight. This is a type of lifestyle this person right here is determining to do. This right here is easy if you think about it. Where they say ignorance is bliss, it really is, because if you're just like, oh, my dad hit me, so I hit my child, I don't care, I can do this. That's not taking any brain waves to do. You're just reacting, right? But if you or this person, you're like, my dad hit that person. I mean, my dad hit my parent hit me, but I want to do something different. I don't want to lean right into hitting. I want to do talking. I want to go on walk and talks with my child. I want to put them in the back seat and talk to them while I'm in the front seat or something. But I'll give a lot more examples. So, okay. Barrier, I do have a question. I saw a hand raise. Are we answering those now or at the end?
I didn't mean questions, you can.
Oh, okay.
You can go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and then we'll go over them at the end.
Gotcha. And I heard Jessica say she didn't mean to.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to give you the like 2 hands up, like, yes, girl, because I was going like, I love what you just said, you know, but I accidentally raised my hand. Sorry.
Oh. No worries. See, I peeped it and I was like, okay, you know, we create a space. So, barriers to change. One of the biggest barriers, honestly, is just our mindset. It's ourself. We can be our biggest critics, our biggest enemies against ourselves is because of our mindset. And a lot of us, myself included, we have fixed mindsets on things that matter and don't matter. I love to use this example of toilet paper. Does the toilet paper go inward or does it go outward? I have seen couples, because I mostly work with couples, have the biggest arguments over toilet paper. But if we think about it and break it down, it's like, actually, it's just based on the household that we grew up in, right? Another one is towels. How are towels supposed to be folded? Are they like hot dog sandwich, rolled up, whatever else? If we think about that too, even for me, so if we look, even when I'm talking about this, sometimes people are like, my shoulders are starting to get tense, right? So if your shoulders are starting to get tense, like, let's drop them, shake them out. But just imagine something as, and I'm going to say simple because I don't think anyone's getting divorced over towels really, right? Or the paper towel roll. But not the paper towel roll, the toilet paper roll. But if we think about it, even our shoulders like getting a little tense, us being like, it's supposed to be folded this way. That is a fixed mindset on something so small, right? Let's drop our shoulders. But if we think about that, barriers to shifting our mindset around parenting, we are so intertwined with who we are as a parent. I want to be a good mom or dad. I want to do this. I'm going to do this right. That's so fixed that it's almost similar to the Tao of how we view it and how it shapes us. So I want us to say, when we are looking at this part, and I'll give some examples. Actually, I want to do this too. I hope I don't. Nope, I'm not going to click over there. I have my notes on my screen in here. I'm just going to use the paper notes because I do not want to click off the screen. But change does not mean losing who you are. It means choosing what aligns with your values. When I say your values, what I mean by that is the things that shape your life. I want to be a great mom. I want to be caring. I want to be compassionate. I want to be adventurous. I love money. Whatever it is that you value, I want you, if you're taking notes, to think values are a direction, like north, east, south, or west. We don't ever really get to our value one day and say, oh, well, I got there, I don't have to do it anymore. It's a lifestyle, it's a direction, right? So I like to tell my clients, what's your true north? Meaning, what's your true value? If I say I want to be a caring person, then my goals make sure they align with that path in my values, right? So thinking of this in the sense of parenting, that is what you would want to do, of like, what type of parent do I want to be? And that will help you determine your values. Even if you just do a quick Google search of values, I like to tell people at least write down 10. From those 10, circle 5. From those 5, circle 3, and that's going to be your values that you're working on this year. Is the easy way of starting to do that. Identifying fears around parenting differently. And so sometimes, especially those that are on this, or if you happen to just click on it and now you're watching this presentation, many of you may not have the "I turned out fine, so why do I need to change?" Because you more than likely wouldn't be here, right? Because you'll be like, let me watch something else, right? But the "I turned out fine," or maybe we have someone, or our partner is someone that has the mindset of "I turned out fine, so why change?" On this one, you may have turned out strong and fine, but I like to ask, at what cost? What was the cost of that? Like, did you struggle with self-worth? Maybe you struggle to express your emotions, and the only emotion that you feel comfortable sharing is suppressed anger, which that's where sometimes as women, we can be a little more passive aggressive, or we let people walk over us because we weren't taught that we could speak up and be heard. And maybe that is you don't feel safe asking for help. So you swing into the hyper independence. That's also a lot of women that I see as well, where you're hyper independent, which is like, I don't need anyone's help. I can do this by myself. I had to do it by myself growing up. I can do it by myself now, right? Like, what is the cost of "I turned out fine, so why do I need to change"? The question I just posed to you is, what's the cost? Once you know that, then you can also ask yourself, ooh, what do I get to do differently? Even if I did one thing different, and that was allow the individual or the child or the person that I'm taking care of know that I am a safe place for them, that is one of the biggest things that we can do for our kiddos. So another one is, if I don't yell or punish my kids, they won't take me seriously. So this is in the sense of like, respect isn't about fear. So this is the mindset that fear makes kids obey, and which they do in the moment, but they aren't really taught how to make good choices and why making good choices matter, right? So they're just, if we think about it, it's like, I don't yell or punch my kids if I don't yell and punish my kids, they won't take me seriously. That mindset is going on. Another way to think about that is, what am I actually teaching them? How am I teaching them critical thinking skills? How am I preparing them to get outside of my care and be like a good functioning citizen in our society, or whatever society they are going to be in? Another one is, if I'm too gentle, my child won't be prepared for how hard life is. I see this one too, like I said, a lot of times with minority families, myself included, where it's like, this world is tough and hard, and there's certain things that you cannot do. And so I can't be gentle on them. I need to make them men, or I need to make them aware, or I need to do this. Versus shifting that mindset into, the world can be a dangerous place. There's also beauty in the world. And I'll make sure there's beauty in my home. So when they step out of that door and the world is worlding, right? The world's doing what the world's going to do. When they come, they know that one door they can always walk through is my home, where they're going to be loved and seen and valued and cherished, etc. And the other one is, I know I don't want to parent like I was raised, but I don't know another way. On this one, parents often struggle with overreacting. That was mine. I was very reactive in an early age. Remember that whole, I had to go to anger management, which turned out to be a beautiful thing. But I was very overreactive. I didn't pause before I responded. And so knowing that there isn't another way, if that is the mindset that you have of like, I feel defeated, I'm overwhelmed, I've tried blank, but it didn't work. And then that is something where I'm like, ooh, I'm excited for you, because just trying, I've already given some gems, but trying some things can be beneficial for you. Remember, small steps. So I know the slide is busy. I'm going to go through these, but I'm going to start with this one right here, using fear-based disciplines. But this is breaking the cycle. So you might be at the point where you're like, okay, Malika, I'm hearing all of this, but what am I actually trying to break? Like, it's so complex, it's so big. What am I really trying to break? So if we go towards this one in the middle, the fear-based discipline, these would be things like, if you heard, because I said so, you better not embarrass me in public. If you don't listen, you're getting a whooping or spanking or getting your ASS beat, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever you were told. And so for this one thing, if you are like, oh, that was my upbringing, that was my childhood, that means fear was mistaken for respect. So many parents believe that obedience equaled good parenting. If my child listened to me, whenever I told them to do something, I'm a good parent, right? Many parents weren't taught other discipline strategies, and so they just repeated what they learned, right? So it's like, be quiet, or what's the saying? Like, children are seen, not heard, right? Like that one, right? Children are seen, not heard. And so that was one. There's a lot of yelling. You feared your parent. I'm trying to like go through the repertoire of examples of, I had a client and she was like, yeah, I knew when daddy walked in the house, we were quiet. Mom got his dinner plate ready. We made sure it was good. And when he sat down to eat, that's when we sat down to eat. Kind of this fear, right? She's like, a relationship with my dad, girl, he was just there to be there. And we were not seen. If we were playing too loud, we got in trouble, right? So like this fear-based discipline. Dismissing emotion. So this is you better stop crying before I give you something to cry about. Don't talk back. That's disrespectful. You're fine. Stop being dramatic. Or you're a man. Shake it off. Like, what is going on? So why this happens is many of us were raised to believe big emotions equal weakness. right? Our parents didn't maybe have the tools, or they didn't have the tools to help us process emotions, so they shut them down instead, right? If we think about it, and this is not to blame our parents, but if you have a parent where both parents are working out of the household, they're busy, they have multiple children, things are going on, things are going on in the world, etc., not as an excuse, just as their reality, right? Handling emotions maybe wasn't their priority. Milking the cows was their priority. Waking up and working in the factory was their priority. Making sure that there was food on the table and the electricity was on, or that they shuffled you off to school on time so they didn't get in trouble or yelled at by their boss for being late again, was the priority, right? And so when we think about this, it's like emotions was at the back burner, because it's like we have other important, quote unquote, things to worry about than your little feelings. But we know that comes with a cost, because then we're like, oh, I don't matter. My feelings don't matter. And we start to do this like streak. Okay. Over controlling behaviors. This is because I said so, no questions. You don't need to know why. Just listen. And you're not allowed to do anything unless I say so. Did I tell you to do that? Did I tell you to do that? Get down from there. What did I tell you to do? That type of thing. And we know this is a strict control as a protection. Sometimes I see this coming up with individuals who have had children who were raised, and by when I say children, so I'm working with the adults. So the adults who were raised by their parents who had some type of trauma, something happened to them where they're very hyper vigilant. You're not going to spend the night at Katie's house because I don't know her parents. And just because I met her parents doesn't mean they can come over here, right? That type of over controlling, if we think about it, comes from a sense of protection. Struggling to model healthy emotional regulation. That is like, I'm so stressed, I don't have time for this. Yelling, slamming doors, breaking plates, shutting down instead of talking through emotions. Like if you go in and you're like, Mom, Dad, whomever your caregiver is, maybe they're like, just leave me alone. I don't have time to deal with this right now. You kids are getting on my everlasting nerves. But you see your grown up, or the person that raised you, have these big, strong emotions. So that was the one that I modeled for my son because I had him in college as well. So I was 16, had him in high school. In college, it was that of like, it's midterms and you want to worry about coloring, da, da, da. A lot of yelling, withdrawing, anger, crying, I'm sorry, and this and that. It's an emotional roller coaster. Or it can be hiding emotions. I need to be strong. It's okay. Stuffing it all in, secretly crying in the shower, whatever the case may be for you all, but struggling to model this. And so how are we doing on time? Okay. I'm going to keep on going. So the one I do want to type on is expecting perfection instead of progress. I see this a lot of times with the individuals or the families that I work with, from immigrant families, indigenous individuals. Those are the ones where it's like this internal pressure on them, because it's like, we came here and you have to exceed, right? This perfectionist, I can't mess up. Withholding affection as punishment. An example of that is if any of you grew up in a household where you're like, dang, I know once my mom or dad or caregiver is mad at me, they're going to give me the silent treatment for a week. Or they're going to be super nice to my sibling, but they're going to straight up ignore me. So that can be one. And then yelling as first response, like being very reactive. So 2 things can be true at one time. So I just want us to shake it off. If you're writing, that is a lot. This is a lot. And I know we are bringing up things, right? But 2 things can be true at the same time. And when I say we, those individuals that are watching this presentation or that are on this presentation, we can be 2 things at one time. You can be both frustrated with your child and still show them love. And I even want to add on that, and still show yourself love. You can set boundaries and still be nurturing. Sometimes if like the parent who may be over emotional, they don't want to set too many boundaries, but it's like I can still set boundaries and be nurturing. You can respect your parent and still parent differently. So this is not a bash on our parents. I definitely do not. Some parents we can bash on because they were just atrocious, and my heart breaks for my clients when I hear their stories. So I'm like, yeah, that one. But for the, I don't want to say for the most of us, but for those of us that are like, I still like my parent and I love them or I care about them, we can respect the parenting that they did. We can pull from the things that they did well while still knowing we can do other things differently because we have more resources and tools and opportunities like this where you can, I don't know, 30 years ago, we weren't all collectively gathered together to talk about how can we parent a little differently, right? So these are tools. You can feel overwhelmed and still be a great parent. And you can work to do better and still have tough days. And so one thing that is held in my household is we go progression over perfection. I do not need my kids to be perfect. Hell, I am not perfect. I am going to have a tough day because I am a human being, a woman on this earth. And when I have a tough day, it's up to me to understand that and then decide how I'm going to engage in the world and my kiddos or my clients, etc. So I want us to take a little moment. So my practice is called Uvolve, but I coined the term evolving. So evolving is putting in the work needed to become the person you want to be, striving for self-evolution. And I want us, you, those that are on camera, you can do it if you would like, or if you're off camera, but I want to teach you just very briefly a mindfulness exercise just before we go into more heavy content. And so we are going to breathe. I'm going to walk us through and then I'll do it. We are going to breathe through our nose and we're going to feel it go through our mouth, down. And then when we blow it out of our mouth, I want you to act like you're blowing out of a straw. So if your breath is in like this, I want you to blow out all the way here. Okay? And I'll do it with you. We're going to breathe through our nose, holding it, blowing out through your mouth like you're blowing out of a straw. I like to close my eyes when I do it. We're going to do it one more time. And when you breathe out, I want you to drop your shoulders and relax your chin area. So breathing through your nose, holding it, blowing out through your mouth like you're blowing out of a straw. Drop your shoulders. Let's do it one more time. We're going to breathe in through our nose. Hold it, blowing out through our mouth like we're blowing out of a straw, dropping our shoulders. This breath, so thank you for doing that. Whenever you do that, something that we all have, a tool that we have is our breath. I had to do that too. I like to do this when I feel I need to slow down. Like I'm getting excited. I love this content. My heart rate was starting to go up. Remember how I said at the beginning, we need to pay attention to our body. This is a way where I can reset my nervous system. I can tell my nervous system, my body, I am safe. I am good. I am right on time. I am right where I need to be for this presentation. I am so glad that whatever was distracting me before might still be there, but I am here in this moment, learning, knowing that I only need one thing to make forward movement. And if that one thing is just, I'm going to breathe and drop my shoulders, check mark, gold star, you're doing well. Okay. So, I like to just do that one. And now I have tasks. I'm going to plan it in all y'all's mind. When you breathe out or when you catch yourself breathing out, I want you to drop your shoulders because you are evolving, right? It's not about perfection. We're just doing the work that's needed to become the person we want to be. Okay. How are we doing? We're doing good? Good. So you do not have to do all of these. These are just examples. Okay. These are practical steps that you can use to break the generational cycle. Pause before reacting is one of those. So to be honest, we all have those moments where we just react before thinking, right? If you're an individual like I was, where you were just quick to react, this is going to be one where it is going to take you some time to get there, and it's going to be slow of changing. But I guarantee you, this is where I'm like, find me on social media or like, let me know. I guarantee you someone's going to be like, something's different about you. And you're like, oh, me? Yeah, I just been breathing, out here not reacting as quickly. Like, it's going to be noticeable. I promise you. This is not even going to help you in just parenting. It will, but it's going to help you at work. It could help you with your finances, right? Like if you are an impulsive shopper and you're like, I need to buy this because I feel sad or lonely or whatnot, you're gonna be like, actually, let me get off of Amazon. Let me go to bed. That right there is pausing before reacting, right? So this is one, and I love to put this in. If you don't do anything, is breathe, drop your shoulders, and pause before you do something. Just adding that break in builds your capacity to have more emotional intelligence, period, right? And so if you can practice pausing even for 2 seconds, 2 seconds isn't that long, then the energy of the situation can change. That can be if your child is doing something and your instinct is to yell, even pause, even just like, and dropping your shoulders. I'm curious how many milliseconds that is. Like just that time versus like seeing them and be like, like if this is what you're doing, paying attention to your body, before I do this, maybe I'm going to, and then say something. Okay. Validate emotions. So think about how it feels when you're venting to a friend and they say, let's just say, I'll use Heather as example. Heather's venting to me about something. She's just going. I'm listening. And I'm like, girl, you're overreacting. Heather would be like, what? Excuse me? I'm sorry. I thought you were a safe place I could talk to or someone I could talk to. She'll probably shut down. She'll start to get the script in her mind. Malika is not a safe place for me to talk to. I don't want to talk to her. But yet, if we think about it, we do that to our kids. This is not to bash us, shame us, guilt us. All of us have possibly done it, or maybe not. But we do that to our kids at times too, right? So we'll tell them that they're overreacting, or can they just be quiet, or whatever the case may be, that we wouldn't do to a friend. Probably because our kids are around us and they can be a little annoying at times, right? Like these little humans just being annoying, but they're learning and developing. But even if we say something like validating their emotions, as I see that you're upset, can go wonders. If you are a person, I'll give resources as well, who is like, I struggle with even knowing what emotions are. There is no shame of printing a feelings wheel, of printing some emotions that you see in your family. It could be a fun thing of cutting them out. I still use a feelings wheel as a therapist because there's just so many feelings for us to keep up with. And when we are, the clinical word is emotionally flooded, but I like to say when things are like this and we're completely overwhelmed, the last thing we're doing is like, actually, I feel very frustrated and we're just like, I don't know what I feel. I just don't, right? So it's good to be able to look at a feelings well if you need that. Apologize when needed. And so this is one when I am working with couples in their in the realm of some type of parenting. One parent typically has I'm not going to apologize to them. They need to respect me or whatever the case may be. But when we can apologize, this is in the sense, again, and I can't force anyone to do anything, but this is more of I want my child to see me as a human, and I am a human that can make mistakes. And if we approach it that way, then it takes kind of that pressure off to be the perfect parent. Knowing mom can have bad days too. And I apologize that I snapped on you because I'm trying to work on that. That gives, if we think about it, from our child's perspective, so if we can turn it as a child, when my mom would say, hey, I'm sorry, you were trying to talk to me earlier and I was on the phone and I completely ignored you. What were you trying to say? My inner child is like, yes, this is what I was trying to say. I feel seen, right? And so if we do that to our kiddos, apologizing when we're needing it, that can increase the relationship that we have. Modeling emotional regulation, I've talked about that. Instead of lashing out, they learn to do the same, such as showing them how to manage your emotions. So the more you manage your emotions, our kids watch us. They are constantly watching us, so they will see us do it as well. And so even if you start saying, Mom's a little tired, I'm going to take a nap, they might be like, oh, Mom's tired? Okay. So self-care for parents. So you cannot pour from an empty cup. We all know this. We say this. We have it on shirts. We have it on cups. I'm looking at my mom's stuff. She has live, laugh, love, but it's probably you can't pour from an empty cup either. But parenting is exhausting. And one thing that I feel like they did get right back in the day, no, is it takes a village to raise a family. And the older I get, the more I realize it does. And with our world and technology and opportunities, we are all scattered from our nuclear families. And so having friends, I remember growing up being around like all my cousins and my support, or going to my aunt's house in the summer. And I'm like, looking back, I'm like, oh, my mom had a whole summer where she could like do whatever she wanted to do. But grandmas nowadays don't be wanting to work. No, let me stop. But so if you are running from an empty cup, it's like, who do I have in my family, whether that's coworkers that I trust, a neighbor that I trust, another parent, where I can have a few minutes to take care of myself. And so finding support is can be hard, but there's options, there's opportunities, and facilities like North Carolina Families United, where they can, in my mind, help you link up with some good resources. So I'm going to end just on, we'll have two more slides, but this is learning to respond instead of react. So a dad working on yelling. I wanted to do this one to be realistic of, this is not going to be, I learned something one day and I apply it and now everything is great, because that's not the reality, right? Let's just say dad grew up in a household where his parents yelled, everyone yelled, and he's like, I want to get a handle on my yelling. Maybe the week one, he just becomes aware of his trigger. I don't want him to change anything at all. I just want him to start to bring his attention to, when do I get frustrated? When do I yell? Is it in the morning? Is it at night? Am I tired? Am I stressed? Did my wife just yell at me? So I yell at it. Like, I want him to just gather data. Week one. Week two, maybe he's practicing one small pause. So he's going to do the breathing. He's going to drop his shoulder, and he's going to try to pause before and then collect data. Was I able to do that? How did I get in my own way? Replacing yelling with a new phrase. So maybe he's going to say, let me slow down, and then say something. And apologize when needed. Not all the time, but when needed. So your reflection question, something that you can look at, is, what is one parenting habit I want to change? Keyword one. How did my own childhood shape the way I parent today? And what is one thing I can do differently starting this week? And I know it's the weekend, but starting this weekend, because we don't wait till Monday to start. So All right, that is what I have for you all. I took us right up to the time, so we have like 5 minutes for questions.
I just want to say this was awesome. I saw myself in quite a bit of these examples. I've got some homework to do, but
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, especially the one when you talked about so I have 3 children, and I parented my first 2 very different than the way I did my last one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the last one, it was kind of hard. But when I began to soften and say, I'm sorry, I forgot to do this or something, now she will come to me and be like, oh, I apologize. I didn't do it. Before, she
Mm-hmm.
was never wrong. She would never apologize. But because I was able to start doing that, now she does it. And
Yeah,
our
you set the
relationship has gotten
tone.
so much stronger.
I
So
love that.
I saw a lot in it.
Yes. Thank you. Any other?
I have a quick
Hi,
question.
Jessica. Yeah.
It's a for real question this time, y'all. Excuse me. First of all, I just want to say I'm so glad that we just heard a presentation on breaking generational cycles. Thank you so much. I think it needs to be shouted from the rooftops that this is a possibility. I think that, you know, as a adult coming from a very traumatic background and having to consciously raise my children different, um, I feel like that it just isn't talked about enough. I don't think we get enough like, hey, you can do that. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you don't love your parents or you're being disrespectful to them. It
Right.
just means that as a child, your needs weren't met in this way, this way, and this way. And so therefore you're going to do it different with your kids. That's
Mm-hmm.
totally cool. It's
Yeah.
okay. I'm so grateful for this presentation. But my question is, in the beginning, you were when you were introducing yourself, you were talking about working in the prison system.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just curious. I always admire people who go into the prison system. Like through church, we have so many missionaries that go in and do that work. And
Nice.
how did that like shape you in what you do now? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
And what made you want to do that?
So I'll start with what made me want to do it and then how it shaped me. What made me want to do it was my professor. I did not want to at first. But as a therapist, in training at the time, our professor was like, Malika, you have to be able to hold space for the men, right? And so I didn't have the best relationship with my dad growing up. I avoided the men. If they dominated in session, I would be like, oh, so you beat your wife, cool. And so he's like, you need to go in here. And I really got to develop and have another appreciation of, oh my gosh, a majority of these men, I don't have the statistics, but a majority of them were just wounded and hurting and scared and sad and weren't taught. And so when I began to like soften there and create a identity with myself of I still can be a strong, loving, kind woman without having to like be like authoritarian myself, but hold space, that I feel like I thank my professor all the time for seeing that in me, because it really helped build my clinical skills. And so when I was at the Department of Veteran Affairs, if a veteran in crisis came in and they were very violent, they were calling Malika to come and talk to them. So I had to shoot my professor a message like, oh my gosh, you are so right. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I hope that answered all of the questions.
Yeah,
Did it?
totally.
Okay.
Totally.
And kudos to you too. So I want to say kudos to you. You said conscious parenting, and I just wanted to say, like, especially if you recognize your own past and the trauma and the things that you have, I just want to say, like, the fact that you recognize it and you are wanting to do that, make sure you give yourself grace. I love that you showed up here today, and you are absolutely correct. Like, we do need to talk about it more, and that it's not this big thing, but it's like these small intentional steps that we take that can really change the life of our kids for the better. So, yeah.
You're so correct. I remember my daughter, my oldest daughter, she tells me all the time, "Mom, you were such a good mom. And I'm like, "Girl, you watched Barney for like 6 hours a day. What do you mean?" So, and I'm just sitting here like, she parents so differently than I did.
Mhm.
But I have to give myself grace because we didn't have all the resources that they have now. But I mean, I sit in amazement sometimes when I watch her parent. It's so different than the way I parented or the way that I was parented because
Yeah.
I came from that generation of children are seen not heard and
Mhm.
know your place and don't talk back. And I look at my grandchildren and they'll be like, when you spoke to me that way, it made me feel some type of way, or it hurt my feelings. And I'm like, you ain't even got feelings. Like, where did that come from? Like, I have to.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it is. It's different, and I'm appreciative. But I too, I loved my mother. There is no other woman in the world that was better than my mom. But I got spanked, you know. But I
Mhm.
realize now that there's a different way. So I'm
Yeah.
very appreciative. You made so many valid points. I'm like, wow,
Thank
it
you.
was good.
Yeah. Thank you. Do we have any more questions, Leah or Heather?
Tracy had her hand raised.
Tracy has her hand up.
Okay.
So I'm not going to cut my camera on because I'm not in a
No
place.
worries.
But I like LaShawn was raised during a time that we got spankings, and that was what we were raised with, and that kind of parental fear that you need to instill into your children so that they'll obey
Mhm.
what you need them to do. It wasn't unusual. So that's the same thing that we did to our parent. But as a grandmother, I have a 3-year-old now, grandmother, and she is um, a ball full of energy. And sometimes I say, oh my gosh, she's so bad. But it's not her just being bad, it's her expressing herself. And
Mhm.
things that we've decided is that we won't do public school with her because we don't want to break her. She's
Okay.
she's so she's rambunctious, she's intelligent, she's all of those things. But my daughter decided very early on, and we talked about it before she had her daughter, and that we were going to do some gentle parenting. Of course, me not knowing what gentle parenting is, I did a lot of research and
Yeah.
was reading and kind of taking a big breath in because I'm like, you expect me to do all this stuff? um, and my granddaughter now sometimes we'll do things, and at night sometimes my daughter and I will sit down and kind of debrief when she's got a few minutes on
Mhm.
her tablet, and we're like, we handled this way, and we see this is happening with her, and how can we do this different? And she's like, Mom, I saw you today acknowledge Ashton's feelings, and she's and that was great. I love the way that you gave her time to explain to you why she was crying, or you
Oh,
still
that's
love her,
beautiful.
were loving her on her. And I love seeing those things in your presentation. I actually learned so much more today, and still working on me and my parenting skills as a grandmother with my grandchild.
Yeah.
So different
Of
because
course.
they're just so different. I will have to say, I don't want to take a lot of time. We went out last week with couple of friends of ours, and we got to the restaurant, and my daughter's like, oh, I hate to take her because she's not she's not gonna act right in the restaurant, Mom. She's just not gonna act right. And I said, she's gonna do fine. Come on, let's go, because I usually don't go with them out when her and her husband go out.
Mhm.
And we got to the restaurant, and she was just a perfect young lady. She was using her manners, please and thank you. And she was talking to one of the young ladies that was sitting at the table, and they just couldn't believe, I just couldn't believe that this is the same child that's wrecking the house. That she's out using these manners that we tried to instill in her, because at home she does this. Milk. I said, cheese. I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. How do we ask for cheese? How do we ask for milk? What do we
Mm-hmm.
do? And she'll say, "Oh, please." And when she got out, she was using all of those manners without any reminders. I was like, well,
Yeah.
at least she knows how to act when she's out. She's just
Mm-hmm.
able to be herself so much more at home. And
I
she's
love that for you all, Tracy.
but thank you for taking the time out. And it's this is a chore that I'm going to give myself, and uh, it'll allow us to continue to have those debriefs. And
Mm-hmm.
when we talk to each other about what we're doing and how she's been disciplined during the day, or the things that she's doing. So thanks a lot.
You are welcome. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
It looks like that's all our questions. So if you guys do have any other questions, you guys can feel free to email us. We just have the normal info at ntfamiliesunited.org. So you can email us if you have any questions, or give us a call. We will be sending out this deck, and we'll also post it on our website. So if you guys want to watch it again, or you need the deck, then you'll have it in your inbox and then on the website. Thank you for coming.
Leah, I just have one question. Malika, is there a way, if anyone wanted to, contact you, is there a way that they can contact you, or do you feel comfortable
Yeah,
sharing that information?
I have should I type it in the chat, or should I just say it? Type it in the chat.
Yeah,
Type it
you
in the
can put
chat.
it in the chat, and then we can also add it to the email that we send out with the deck.
Okay. So I put in, and I'll say it out loud too, Malika at Uvolve, H as in healing, C as in center.com. That's my email address. I am taking a social media detox for a couple of months, so you won't be able to find me on socials. But I do check my email. So if you do have any questions, feel free to do that. I can give North Carolina Families United some Instagram pages, some books, recommendations, or whatever the questions are. I don't mind helping answer those as well. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was awesome.
All right. You guys have a
Thank
nice
you.
day. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's great.